Hello, everybody. This is Gary Matheny. Happy to have you join me again today on the Liberty Observatory. Today we're going to do part 4 of the Abrahamic covenant. I hope that you've had an opportunity to listen to parts 1, 2, and 3 because we're kind of building upon the prior segments or episodes. And as you are aware, Liberty Observatory is committed to the organic. It is unedited, undiluted, uncompromised, if that's the right word. It represents the opinions of the speaker in an unedited way. So thank you for going along in this journey for the Abrahamic Covenant Part 4. And when it comes to the Liberty Observatory, what you see is what you get. Well, let's start now with a review of the previous episodes, just a very brief overview. And so in part 1, we talked about who Abraham was to the Jews. And then in the following parts, we did who was Abraham to the Christians. And then we did who is Abraham to the Muslims. And then the last episode, we did advice for the Jews. And today we're going to do advice for the Christians and advice for the Muslim based upon the Abrahamic covenant. Some of these verses I won't read again. They're read in previous episodes. But we're going to start with advice to the Christians. First, and maybe foremost, remember that the Jews possess the oracles of God. This is Romans chapter 3. The oracles of God included the law is handed down through Moses. The Abrahamic covenant, in addition, has not been set aside. I could not get any real observation from the New Testament that the Abrahamic covenant was trashed. And so the Abrahamic covenant basically is Father Abraham is that God will bless those that bless Abraham and his seed of the promise, Isaac. God will bless those that bless the Israelites, and God will curse those who curse the Israelites. And not only will those that bless the Israelites be blessed of God, but they will be blessed by the Jewish people. I'll give you an example of this in my own life. In 1985, I was in my 3rd year of law school. I had fallen in love with a woman who ultimately rejected me. And she went to the same church that I did, and it was very painful for me to attend that church with her there, because every time I saw her, I was reminded of my own lack and my own failure to win her as a wife. And so I decided to leave in the fall of 1985 and go back to St. Louis, where I was from. And I went to my pastor, and the pastor basically speculated as to whether I would even continue to be a Christian or perhaps even go to hell. And so he wasn't happy to hear at all that I was leaving and heading back to St. Louis. So the Christian pastor cursed me, didn't use profanity, but did not bless me. So I went to my law office boss. During law school, I worked as a clerk at a local law office in Columbia, and the two partners there were Jewish. So I went into the law office and I told one of the partners, his first name was also Gary, and I told him, well, I'm going to quit and I'm going to go on back to St. Louis. And he came out from behind his desk and kissed me on the cheek and hugged me. So the Jew blessed me, the Christian cursed me. Go figure. How does that work? But anyhow, bless the Jewish people and you will be blessed by God. And so it was a good thing. And ultimately it worked to my benefit to move back to St. Louis. And so basically, it is a good thing that we bless those that are of the Jewish persuasion, because we will be blessed by God. But let's review a few other scriptures here. First of all, we're going to mention Matthew chapter 5. And we're going to talk a little bit about the law, because the main divergence between the Christians and the Christians and the Jews relates to, in my opinion, the role of the law, and of course, the role of Jesus as the Messiah. But here in chapter 5, verse 17, Jesus is speaking, and he says, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill." And so the Israelites are possessors of the oracles of God. So Jesus' role was not to destroy the law, but he fulfilled the law. Later in the book of Romans, the Apostle Paul amplified on this particular subject matter, that the law was our tutor, that the law ultimately showed us that we were failures and that we were sinful, and that the only way to be redeemed, the only way to be saved, was through faith in Jesus Christ. So he fulfills the law. He doesn't destroy the law. The law is still there, dear Christian people. So let's head a little bit further and go up to Galatians chapter 6. And to give you a filling out of the Christian's view on the law, we'll have verse 2 of Galatians chapter 6. "Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. If you go back into the Gospels and Google Sermon on the Mount, and you look at that particular sermon by Jesus, you're awestruck. How do I do this? How do I do this? Because to fulfill the law of Christ runs contrary to human instincts, but it is consistent with the divine leading of the Holy Spirit. And so, how do we fulfill that? Through faith in Jesus Christ. You see, he has fulfilled the law. He has made us and given us the ability through faith and the power of the Spirit to fulfill the law and bear one another's burden. Care for other people, dear Christian. All right. We will move ahead now. We'll briefly remind you that Abram meant exalted one, and Abraham means father of many nations. And we understand, as I've said before, that we are blessed through the promised seed of Abraham, and that's Isaac. If we bless those, we shall be blessed. And so, in addition, we're going to read from Romans chapter 11, starting in verse 17. Romans chapter 11, verse 17. And this can kind of fulfill that concept of how we relate to the Jewish people. And this is the grafting into the olive tree. Romans 11, verse 17. If some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, wert grafted in among them, and with them partaketh of the root and fatness of the olive tree. So we are grafted into the tree, and now we partake of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, which is Christ. Verse 18. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boastest not the root, but the root thee. And so, do not despise the other branches. Do not even despise the branches that have been broken off. Verse 19. Thou wilt say, then the branches were broken off, and I might be grafted in. See, that's boastful. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off. This is verse 20. And thou standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. So we're not to be high-minded as believers. We are not to despise people of the Jewish religion. We only stand as grafted in by faith. And because we stand and grafted in by faith, we are partaking of the root, which is Christ. All right, so in summary, to Christians, the Abraham covenant, according to my belief, is that it has not been set aside. Bless the Israelites and God will bless you. Bless the Israelites and the Israelites will bless you. You know, there's some people that have this theological belief of, they call it replacement theology, that basically the Israelites are nothing now to God, that the church has replaced them. Well, the church is relevant and important and may be preeminent in God's mind. But the Israelites, he still loves, he still cares for, and he still desires to bring them into the fold. Remember, the Israelites are the possessors of the oracles of God. They came through Abraham, and they came through Moses 500 years later through the law. And so, in no situation should Christian people despise Jewish people. All right, so let's move ahead now to Muslims. And I'm hoping I'm not going to be too harsh when it comes to my advice to Muslims. And basically, first of all, trash the Quran and the associated writings with the Islamic faith, because they made a fundamental mistake. It's in Genesis 21 and Romans chapter 9, is a juxtaposed Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac is the promised seed. It is through Isaac you will be blessed. And so when you juxtapose Ishmael with Isaac, you make a fundamental error in the whole process of the Islamic faith, because it is through Isaac we shall be blessed. Another thing, trash your leaders. You got to remember, dear listener, it's not me that is calling you all and your children into martyrdom. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, it says there is one mediator between God and man, and that's Christ Jesus. And so you all don't need your imams. You all don't need those radicals that are calling your children to martyrdom. You may be highly insulted by my remarks. I don't intend it, but I'm not calling your children into death. What do you need? Do you need the Middle East completely ablaze in fire? You are violating the Abrahamic covenant by having Israel as your sworn enemy. Remember, the Abrahamic covenant still exists. God will bless you as you bless the Israelites. God will curse you if you curse the Israelites. Is there any real doubt that the Islamic faith and the Arab Middle East countries have been struggling? And I believe it's at least partly related to making Israel your sworn enemy. I know it's counterintuitive, but make Israel your friend and things will go well for you. Another problem here with this juxtaposition of Ishmael and Isaac, which I got into in a previous episode in particular, that Ishmael has basically substituted for Isaac in the Islamic faith. In fact, it was Ishmael that Abraham took to the mountain and offered as a sacrifice to the Lord. And in the Islamic version of the events with Ishmael, Abraham had gone so far as to actually cross Ishmael's throat with the knife, to which Ishmael was not injured. Different account than what's in the Bible. But it's through Isaac. It's through Isaac that your seed will be blessed. And remember, we said that the Christian faith represents a building upon Judaism. It's the law. You can't fulfill the law. The harder you try and fulfill the law, the bigger failure you are. It's the prophets pointing to the Messiah who is fulfilled by Jesus, who, according to Matthew 1, is a descendant from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Jesus is the Messiah. And so come to that understanding that the Christian faith is not contrary to Judaism, but it builds upon it. Where the Islamic faith is separate from and took a wrong turn in the process by substituting Ishmael for Isaac. So there's something I don't understand. Why do Muslims, Arabs in particular, somehow bothers them that Abraham's seed through Isaac is blessed? You are Gentiles. Well, I'm a Gentile. And it's never really ever entered my mind to resent the fact that I was not born Jewish. You're not born Jewish. You're not of the seed of Abraham. You're not the seed of Isaac. You're not Jewish. So why do you feel like that creates problems with you? Well, how do I get grafted in? By faith. We Gentiles, and I'm speaking to the Muslims, we are grafted in by faith in Jesus Christ. We are partakers of the root. The sustaining root of our faith is Christ himself. So forsake Islam. With great peril, some of you will forsake Islam. But great is the treasure from within through faith in Jesus Christ. Well, everybody, have a great day. God bless you. And this concludes the series on the Abrahamic covenant.